You might be thinking pennant banners, that sounds kind of boring. It's basically just triangles you sew together. You've probably seen them on sale at Anthropologie before. But what's interesting about this video is that I'm making 1 million of them. No, actually, as of the time I'm filming this, I have about a month till the wedding, a little bit less actually, which is very scary. But I'm getting married in a ballroom, and if I've already gotten married by the time I post the video, I'll tell you which ballroom and I'll include a photo. But I think that it's gonna be really cool to decorate the ballroom with pennant banners, just add a lot of color. That's a really historical building, and it's actually a huge space. So I need something to fill it up. There is a chandelier which hangs from the ceiling, and there are certain posts where we can tie pennant banners from the chandelier to the walls. And then there's a few other places where I think we could possibly hang them up. But I've gotten measurements from the person who runs the venue, so our first step is to figure out exactly how many of these we need and exactly which size they're gonna be. So based on the measurements that I have received, there are 2 poles around the center of the ballroom, and these are 22 feet apart. And then there's a chandelier, and there are 6 points in which pennant banners could be tied to other places from the chandelier. There are 2 26-foot sections and then 4 40-foot sections. So my thought is to do 2 lines of pennant banners for each of these 7 segments of measurement. Have one of the lines have about 2 feet of extra length in order to be kind of loose, and then the other line can have 7 feet of stretch or 7 feet of extra length in order to be pretty loose, so that the pennant banners don't line up. They're hanging at different heights. I decided for my banners that I would make them 8 by 10 inches, but I would add ½ an inch of seam allowance whenever I was cutting them out. So they'll actually be 8.5 by 10.5. It'll be 8 on the top side and then 10 inches long. So all of the measurements that I calculated were in feet. So in order to figure out how many triangles that would equal for all of my pennant banners, I multiplied by feet by 12 and then divided by 8, which leaves us with 384 triangles for the first set of banners and 443 triangles for the second set. And because these triangles are going to be double-sided, that means that we have 768 triangles to cut out for the first set and 885 for the second set. And I have some really exciting news for this. My grandmother has agreed to help. I got a lot of comments on my Instagram post and all that saying, girl, you need an assistant. I don't have an assistant, but my grandmother has so kindly offered to take a lot of this workload off of me. So she's gonna be making a lot of the first set, which are the shorter ones. I'm not gonna make her make the longer ones, and I'll be taking on the longer ones. And we're both doing very colorful. I think I said I wanted to use red for my bias tape for the, to attach all of them together. And this also means that I need to make over 400 feet of bias tape. Wait, pause. Editing Jane here. Girl, bias tape is cut on the bias. I didn't do any tape cut on the bias for this project. It was actually all binding tape, which is just cut on the grain, straight seam, and quite frankly, I didn't need to do bias tape for this project because there was no need for the flexibility that bias tape provides. Binding tape is actually a little bit stronger, so I'm glad that I did do it. I was just mistaken. Every single time I say bias tape, I really mean binding tape, which is crazy. That's really a lot. I don't think I realized what an immense project this was, actually. We'll see how much we can get done. I have this habit of thinking things will be time efficient and I can get them done, and then it turns out that they take a lot of time. That's just how it goes with sewing though, right? But anyway, I'm gonna make a template to cut out my triangles. I thought about just using a cutting board and doing the measurements, but I think it'll be more efficient for me to actually just have a template, a 10.5 by 8.5 inch triangle, pin that onto my fabric, and go from there. We can always fold fabric multiple times to get it exactly right. Don't worry, these aren't my fabric scissors. And it's also not the end of the world if it's not exact. Now I just have to cut out 1,000 triangles. Not bad, not bad. I don't think I've ever cut out 1,000 pieces of fabric in one day before, and we'll see if that is even possible. This is vintage Joann's. I know it because I bought something very similar to this in a different color a couple years ago, but I swear the quality has decreased because this feels so luxurious. It's definitely 100% cotton. It just feels better than the current cotton I've bought at Joann's. But my mom has also gifted me a lot of old fabric to use for these, which is so lovely. I have lots of options. I don't think I ever said I'm using a ton of fabric for this. I'm just basically going through my entire stash and just pulling all of the quilters cottons, all of the linens, anything that could be remotely close to a quilter's cotton and has no stretch. So I think it's working out pretty good. I'm also going for a very, very, very eclectic color scheme, if you couldn't tell. I love mixed match colors and I just want to spice up the ballroom a whole lot. The first 100 are done and we've been cutting for about an hour. So that's not a bad rate. I think at this point I could get maybe 500 done tonight. So that's really not bad. We also have a nice range of colors. And yeah, back to cutting. These so cute. These are good too. Indifferent about most of these. Those are really ugly. But it's okay. I have 700 triangles cut out. 700. And I have 1278 to do, which means I have 600 left. Actually a little bit less than 600. But I'm losing steam, I'm getting tired. I'm also out of fabric, so I'm going back to all my old fabrics, but it feels boring. Let me show you. So right over here, these are my stacks. I also have some down here. And my mom is actually a quilter, so she's giving me a lot of her old quilters fabrics that she's probably not going to use. Like this just freaks of High School Musical era. The big circles. Anyway, I have used a lot of old fabrics. I'm aware that none of these colors go together. That's kind of the point. But I just have no more options. I've gone through our garage. I've just looked through all of the old fabric that is in this house. And I also don't think I want to go buy more just because I have a lot left. It's just like, do I just cut out 100 of these red? Actually, I like the red. You know, I'm going to do 100 red. That's what I'm going to do. I also have this blue, which is also a pretty solid blue. And I've been cutting them up and I'm like, oh, I'll save a little bit of this one for future projects. But like, no, I have a fabric buying problem. Therefore, the more I can use, the better. But talking a lot about pennant banners right now, sorry. I just cannot believe how many of these I have. It's crazy. This is gonna be so insane. This is gonna be more insane than my wedding dress. This many pennant banners. One last thought before we resume our cutting. My mom said, are you keeping these to use as scrap fabric to cut up for future projects? I don't think so. I think I'm gonna keep them as pennant banners and have parties every year where I have 1,000,000 feet of pennant banners hanging around our yard because it would be a shame not to. If anybody needs these, you can rent them from me. You can take them for a little bit, but I want them back. Guys, the wedding is in 1 month, which means I can wear my veil all the time and it's socially acceptable, right? I think so. With all 1,300 triangles cut out, thus began the sewing. This is my pile that I've sewed so far. I don't know how many it is, I'm not counting, but I think I'm gonna take a break from sewing and go cut these apart because I've been batch sewing them all together and give them a good press. My mom actually has a big iron. I know on my channel I don't think I've ever used a big iron and not my beloved mini irons. This is really exciting. It's gonna be so efficient compared to what I've been using. I actually love these. They're so sick. They're so colorful. I think they're gonna look wonderful. Yeah, it smells just like Mississippi Water smells. Love those pinup banners. Those are some of the best pinup banners I've ever. Those banners are so sick, aren't they? Truly a work of art. Look, we've got a lot done. Moment of truth, are they actually 8 inches wide? Let's count this one. Almost. Yes, perfect. All right, update. Plan was to get 11 yards of this based on my calculations, which I did yesterday. I had to recalculate because I realized that 54 inches wide is not a standard width for cotton. It's actually 44 inches wide, so we took out 4 inches of error, which leaves us with 20 strips per foot, whatever, you get the gist. But they didn't have 11 yards, so I got 6 and something oddly specific, like 5/8 of a yard of this, and then 5 of this. So we have enough, should be good. I'm gonna finish showing all my triangles together before I cut out all of this bias tape though. And I've enlisted help from my little brother and my fiance who's back there. So it should be a little bit faster going from this point forward. I'm done. I think I got tired of sewing triangles together about 400 triangles ago, but alas, we've sewn 650 of these things together. We have stacks for everything, or for 10 strands of garland. So now I get to actually cut out that massive amount of fabric I bought the other day. I think it's like day 5 of this project, and I haven't been twiddling my thumbs. I've been working pretty hard on this, and it's just taking a lot of time. But I'm hoping it's worth it. I'm also gonna go see my grandmother today, and she has some banners for me to look at, and I'm going to bring her bias tape because it is not fair to ask her to cut out 40 feet of bias tape. So I'll do that for her and hopefully can get it done by 1 p.m. because that is when I'm driving over to see her, and also just to kind of spend some time with her. She has a wedding band that I might even pick up to wear for my wedding band, so we'll see. This is about 6 yards of fabric worth of bias tape, and I have never seen this much bias tape before. I do need to iron it. That's pretty crazy. I've been debating, do I sew it all together and then iron, or do I right now measure out how much I need for each of the strips and then see what I need to cut out of my pink, which is right here? I think I'll do that. I think I'll measure this out and see what I need to do. Wait 1 second. Tomorrow, no plans besides the wedding. I'm looking forward to being married and having this whole wedding behind me. I'm actually like immensely excited to see all of it, to actually see the dress and my husband's suit, which I'm not making, by the way. I said I was going to, but I do not have time. And the pennant banners and every detail of it all that we've been planning for so long. I'm looking forward to not having these crazy projects to do in too short of an amount of time. But you know what? I did, in fact, do this to myself. "29 feet of bias tape. This is for this amount of triangles. This is my shortest strand, unfortunately. But I said I was gonna do 2 2-foot segments at the end of each of them. I think I'm gonna do 2 6-foot segments. If we have a big pillar that I have to tie these around and these don't stretch and it's the day of, what am I gonna do? So it's a pain, but I'm gonna do 2 6-foot segments at the end of each of the strands. So in fact, I might be going to get more fabric, but that's okay. You live and you learn. That equals 24 feet of bias tape just for the ties for each strand, which is 24 times 14, which is this amount of bias tape just for the ties, which is crazy. And I am, like I said, gonna save all of that for the end of this process. I am gonna go ahead and sew these onto here just because I want to see one strand done before I do a whole lot of cutting and ironing. And I also think it's going to be easiest to unfold the bias tape, sew these down right sides together. Well, there's no right side because both of these are right sides, but I'll sew these down and then I'll fold it back over and sew it down the way I usually would. And I'm probably not going to use matching thread because it's not going to be visible from far away, and I don't have any red thread accessible, and it's somewhere deep in my pile in the garage right now. So this is a very hectic process to be doing while I'm also moving, but it'll be good. And thus we begin. It's exciting. I think if I go like that, and then it can be folded over, well, we'll trim it down and it can be folded over, and it should be good. I really prefer to have the bias tape on top, but then it's a little awkward. Whatever, we'll make it work. Whatever, it's not important. Wow, those two look wonderful, don't they? This is so exciting. Well, it's not sewn on yet, but it will look really good. This is so exciting. I can finally see what like 50 hours of work are gonna look like. This is my first strand, by the way, and it is my shortest. And that is the only one I have done so far, but we will get it done. Isn't it so fun and colorful? I like it. I think it'll look good. Fingers crossed it looks good because this was a lot of work. Perfect. I need to cut some threads, but besides that, I think that is as good as we're gonna get. It is not as clean as my grandmother's are gonna be, I know that for sure, but it'll work for now. It's literally been a week and a half. I went to New York City and Philadelphia, and then I came back, and I'm still working on these pennant banners. Incredible. Excuse my language. Can't believe it. I have 5 strands left to sew together, and then I need to organize them. I'm thinking I'm gonna get cardboard and just wrap them around pieces of cardboard and label them A, B, C, D, all the way up to the 14th letter of the alphabet, which is whatever. And then I can just tell the person who's gonna be putting these up at the ballroom, it's not me, that this is where they go. This is pretty. We have like a vintage tablecloth on top of crazy yellow. This is one of my favorite colors, this crazy yellow. Love it. My bobbin ran out literally 30 feet ago. Incredible. Very sad though. Guys, this is my last strand I have to sew. I've actually already put them together. I just need to fold that over and stitch it down, which is by far the most annoying part because you have to go slow to make sure that everything's caught up in your seams or whatever. But it's my last one. It's literally my last one. Exciting stuff. Oriented. Actually, this is the correct end, which I am sewing. And that's that. That was literally my last stitch sewing that thing together. I just have to add the straps at the end, which, by the way, I'm not gonna show you how I add the straps at the end because it's wrong and I know it's wrong. It's messy and definitely could be done better, and I know it could be done better. I just choose not to. I've spent probably like 100 hours on this project and I just don't care. And also they're gonna be so far up, nobody's ever gonna know. Maybe at a later date, I'll go back and fix it, but for now, I just don't care. So in just a second for you guys, this whole thing will be wrapped up.
Okay, T-minus, can I get a time check? What's the time check? 2 hours, Jane.